right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode number 2 of Startup Fuck Up. Today, I have with us Jinbin Yang, a good friend of mine who I've known since 2011. So that is places us at what, 11, close to 11 years now? No, 10 years. So Jimmy, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about what you do, who you are.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for your invitation, Chin. Um, my name is Jinbin Yan. I'm a commercial banker for about 2 years. Been in the banking world for almost 10 years. Prior to that, I've done a number of jobs, but mainly Chin and I founded Onion Chef. Um, I think we can talk about that later. Currently, I'm a father of two beautiful children. I have a boy who's about 5. My daughter's just turned 3. I think we both graduated from UBC in oh yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Jimmy, Jinbin. To help listeners understand how our audiences, our guests kind of make decisions behind their business, I also like our guests to share usually what are your personal values, because I believe that a lot of our decision making comes from our personal values. So, for example, like if you are a father now, you might care more about security. Therefore, you might take certain decisions in life, like taking a more secure job or not jumping into startup because that is one of your values. So maybe tell me a bit more about what are your current personal values.
That's a good question, Chin. My number one priority is, and you can say value as well, is family. It's always my number one
Mhm.
value. Spend time as much time with your family as possible. Second is health. Third is personal growth. And fourth is impact. So I think it's very important if we can make a lasting impact.
Great. Thanks for sharing. A bit about myself as well. I'll introduce myself in this episode because I think it's not only Jinbin's story, but also a bit of my experience since we were co-founders in this first company. So yeah, my name is Chin. I started in sales coming out of university, and Jinbin, I'd love to hear why you decided to go into sales as well. But I graduated from UBC with a BSc in psychology, and coming out of that, I've always wanted to go into business. But growing up with very conservative Asian parents, my parents always pushed me to go into academics because they said I was smart, and they said, business, you can figure it out on your own. You don't have to study business. You don't have to do an MBA. So that was kind of why when I graduated, I said, hey, if I want to go into business and I don't have any business background, what's the best place to start? I think sales is the best place, because every business you have to learn how to sell something. You have to sell to your customers. You have to sell your idea to investors. You have to pitch to team members as well. So I thought that was the best place to start. So yeah, Jinmin, I'd love to hear kind of, we both got to know each other through when we used to work in telecommunications, when we were selling cell phones. Why did you get into that job?
Well, honestly, I couldn't find a better job. So that seems to be the only option at that point in time. I have a master degree in economics. Surprisingly, there were not many opportunities outlet in Vancouver, and I did not want to go to Toronto. I did have some opportunity to work for the government or provincial government or the non-profit organization back in the east. But I love Vancouver so much, I didn't want to leave. And at that time, I think everything was very, very on top of everyone's mind. Cell phone apps, so I thought, be a salesperson in cell phone is pretty cool, and I can learn about technology. It's one thing I'm always obsessed with.
Mhm.
Yeah, so end up to be in that company with you. I think we both worked at Tinseltown, nearby Chinatown in Vancouver.
Mhm. Yeah, we worked there for I think we both started at about the same time, and we stayed in the company for about 2.5 years, and then we both left to start our own company. So maybe tell us a bit about what Onion Chef was, and what does it do? Why did we start it?
Wow, that's a long time ago, my friend. Uh, 10 years ago, I think, or maybe even 11. Wow, time really flies. And then you and I both have 2 kids now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I think it was very natural. We were working for the company, and we see that the format of the company was not the best way we wanted. We couldn't see any growth opportunity. The business was more of a family run, and we see tremendous opportunities in apps. And then you and I are both foodie. I think as people surround us are all foodies. Most people in Vancouver love all kinds of food, especially it's very multicultural. So I thought, it was very natural, an idea came up to make it easier for us to, or for the people out there to find their best uh, dishes, and then there wasn't a clear solution or problem solver out there, and yeah, it was quite natural that came to us, and then I think we went further with it. We attract a few people to join us, and yeah, well, we can talk about it later on, but it didn't turn out to be well. We learned a lot, and it's still date, even it really benefited in my current job as a commercial banker. I
Mhm.
share that experience a lot with my clients, and I think yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to explore when we were young. Hindsight, I think we should explore more opportunities out there. Now we have a lot of family obligations, so we are not as free as before, and then I think the risk level we can take is much less.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Lower risk tolerance when you have kids. Just to give the listeners some more context, when we started Onion Chef, that was when I think the hottest cell phone at the time was the iPhone 3. So during that time, it was like phones were the new and hot thing, apps were the craze, and everyone was trying to build an app. And we thought, hey, yeah, this could be a good idea because there were apps out there that help you get to a restaurant, like Yelp. And then at the time, there was another one called like Urban Spoon as well, where you would shake your phone and it would just tell you based on your random selection, like, preference or distance, and it will give you a random suggestion for a restaurant. But we all decided, hey, there's no easy way for you to figure out what's the right thing to order in a restaurant. And the only other way to do it is to read reviews and try to figure out what people are talking about, or you can ask the server. So we said, hey, why don't we build this Onion Chef app where it's all centered around the dishes itself? It's more about showcasing the best dishes in the restaurant, ranking the dishes, those kind of things. We worked on that for how many months? Was it 6 months?
Yeah, I think we dragged it along to almost a year until we decided to quit. I think
Mhm.
you and I were the last one decided to quit, and then I think we burned all our money. We didn't have money to live, and then we did. I decided to work for a bank, and then I think you jumped into a different venue. But yeah,
Yeah.
till date, we still don't see any app out there actually will make it easy for you to find the best dish in a restaurant. I think the sunk cost in a restaurant to order one dish is very high. We could be in a very nice restaurant, but if you don't know which dishes to order, you could be end up with a bad experience. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that doesn't matter. That's why it doesn't matter to people out there. So that's why there's not a. Again, I haven't done enough research lately, so yeah, I don't see anything out there that is has become a household name. But yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
I would agree. I haven't found something that is similar to this. So, listeners, if you think this is a good idea that you want to run with, feel free to steal this idea for sure. Um, but I think that actually has a lot of interesting things. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to why that idea didn't work. But yeah, we spent close to about a year, maybe, if we include foregone income as well and the money that we spent on developers and all of that, we probably spent close to $60,000 in that year. And then we ended up with a business that didn't go anywhere. So maybe let's divert into kind of what we learned from it. I'd love to get your take. What do you think was the most important lesson that you got out of it?
Yeah, sure. Ching, I think the foregone cost is much larger than 60,000. If you're adding our salary and so on, we didn't pay us anything. We pay our developers and graphic designer, but we did not pay us. So if you're adding everything, including our time and all the costs we pay, I think it's at least 100 50, even more than that. But anyways, yeah, the biggest thing I learned is customer validation. So we did not spend a whole lot of time to do customer validation. So we were very excited about the idea. And I think we were also very protective of the idea, which I think idea is worthless.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot execute the idea, turn the idea into a reality. So it's yeah. So I think my advice to all the startup founders out there is don't be so protective about your idea. Feel free to share your ideas. The more people knows about your idea, the better. But they could become your ambassador. Could become, you know, your supporter to help you to grow your business or even spread the words around. So that's the main thing I learned. Second one is execution is very important. It's okay to have an imperfect product to begin with. I think the key here is to get things out as soon as possible, fail fast. If you're gonna build something that's not gonna attract, it's better that it fails as soon as possible so you can move on to the next right solution. We were very hung up to have a perfect idea or perfect product out there. We spend too much time on the product development, but I think we should spend bulk of our time going out there, validate our concept, validate our business model, talk to business, talk to clients. That's one part we didn't do much. Yeah, that would be the two key main thing I learned.
No, interesting for sharing. I would even expand. I think that was a bit of those three things, not just two things. So one is the idea validation. Number two is the sharing the idea itself. And then the next one is kind of not worrying about being too perfect. So maybe let's expand on the number one on sharing the idea itself. I think that's actually a very common mistake that a lot of first-time entrepreneurs make. A lot of us, when we start something, we think, hey, we have the next big idea that no one else has been thinking of. So interestingly, like I've in my career consulting and working with startups, I would say most early or first-time entrepreneurs make the same mistake that we make. So from my experience, at least, here's what I've learned about sharing your ideas, and Jimmy, feel free to add onto it as well. So the first thing I'd say is when you have an idea, when you're thinking about sharing it, be mindful of who you are sharing your idea with. So what I mean by that is, yes, you can be a bit more secretive if you think that you're sharing with a potential competitor. But oftentimes, if you're sharing with, let's say, an investor or an advisor or a banker or someone else who you're just looking for some sort of input on, most of the time, those people are not in the job of stealing your ideas. So if that is kind of what they do, they probably hear your idea or they've heard your idea dozens of times, if not more. So don't worry about getting investors or advisors to sign NDA. So if you don't know what an NDA is, it's a non-disclosure agreement. So yeah, being mindful of who you're sharing. And then I think the other thing is being mindful of what you're sharing as well. So I'd say go ahead and share what you're doing, but you don't have to get into the how you're doing it. So you don't have to get into the secret sauce. You don't have to get into the special algorithms or anything like that. But if you can't even share what you're doing, then you probably are holding yourself back because your idea is probably not as unique as you think it is. Do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree to that. But I think I probably go a little bit more aggressive in terms of about this point. After learning so many things out, in the real world, talking to many entrepreneurs, very well-established entrepreneurs, and if you're looking at, I think idea is worthless again. I would be, if I were to do this again, I would be a broadcaster about the idea. It's fine. I'm going to talk to anyone, even the competitors. I'll tell them this is what I'm going to do. I think there's no new ideas under the sun. I don't possibly. And if you look at Elon Musk, arguably the most successful entrepreneur on the planet right now, when he started Tesla, he just simply tell, hey, I'm building an electric vehicle. He should tell everyone he met, and then to use the opportunity to recruit talents.
Yep.
So I think, I wouldn't be shy at all, even telling to your competitors.
True. Definitely don't disagree on that. I think that is more for depends on what people are doing and whether they feel comfortable. But I would personally do that as well, because I think what is more interesting is sometimes who we think are competitors might actually be partners instead of competitors. And I was listening to this episode of Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and he was talking about the founder of Rent the Runway, and how she was actually had that same concept of like worrying about sharing the idea with competitors. And she shared the idea of renting dresses to like the big retail stores. And actually what they said is, you know what, we are not your competitors. If you can come and solve this problem for us, we actually want to partner with you to do this. So she thought that the big retail stores would actually be her competitor, but they actually turned out to want to partner up with her instead of actually solving the problem themselves. So yeah, definitely agree. Like, share as much as you can. The more you share, the more real it becomes, the more feedback you get, the more you can recruit talent, the more you can actually tangibilize it, make it tangible. On those notes on sharing your ideas, two other things also come to mind. So one is, if you're worried about people stealing your idea, I think it's an unfounded bias, because people will eventually steal your idea. So what I find is, it's more important to, like you say, execute fast, because when you execute and when you start to build some sort of brand around it, or maybe even a community, if you're able to recruit people to it, the more you can do that, the harder it is for a potential competitor down the road to actually steal away your community or to mimic your brand, because you start to build brand loyalty, trust, and people start to know you as, hey, Jimmy is the guy who's working on this, right? So the more you share it, then the more anchored in you get, and it becomes, actually, a matter of fact, harder for people to steal it, rather than just trying to keep it secret. And then the second one is, I think people overthink and they overemphasize first move advantage. So it's actually better to be the second mover and have someone break into the market. Like, Facebook was not the first social media platform, MySpace was, right? How can you become the second or third and do it better instead?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think execution is very, very much important compared to being first. But it depends now. Well, if you look at EV market, I don't think Tesla is the first, but then they are the first to execute so fast and to scale. I think the key here is scale. And then just to add, Tesla open source all their codes, and it was not a secret, so they can just copy the code, and then as long as they have capital, they can build an EV.
Yeah.
Now you can see there's a ton of EV out there, but none of them has come close to compete with Tesla.
Yeah.
So I think scalability, and then the speed, and also building a brand and the community around it is very important.
Yeah, and I like that you bring in Tesla too, because I think they've done a very good example here of not only worrying about competitors, but they focus on like, hey, if we make everything open source, we can actually accelerate adoption of EV in general, because EV is such a small market at present and it's still not the mass market yet. So for them, it's like, if we can make EV the mainstream, then we will be the leader in that mainstream industry then. So, like they say, a rising tide floats all boats, right? I'd love to get your thoughts on patenting, since we were talking about ideas as well. A lot of people worry about patenting their idea. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think patent can only buy you a couple of years time, but then patent could be becoming an obstacle for you to access to talent. I think the number one patent, quote unquote, would be your ability to innovate. I think, and then, yeah, I don't disagree with people that, depending on your industry, some industry, yes, you do need a patent, but in terms of technology, I'm not a big fan of patenting everything.
Yeah.
So you can patent an idea, idea is out there.
True. True.
Yeah.
Here are my 2 cents on patenting as well. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice. Definitely patenting is only applicable to certain processes and designs. If it's just the idea itself, you can't patent it. But if it's like the special algorithm that you're using or a very unique design, then that could be patented. But I think what a lot of people don't realize about patenting as well is that when you patent, you actually have to disclose everything in detail in your patenting application. And that is actually unnecessary exposure for some companies, because in some cases, you might want to keep your secret sauce. And if you are disclosing it in a patent, that actually gives competitors or patent trolls the opportunity to go and copy you. And if you can't come forth with the capital to defend your patents, then you've gone through all that time, all that effort, and all that money to patent, only to expose yourself and make it easy for people to copy your idea as well. So sometimes some companies opt not to patent deliberately because they just want to keep things under the wraps.
That's an interesting point. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So the other thing you talked about, the second lesson, was customer validation. One thing I want to tease into that is I noticed as well in our approach to Onion Chef, we didn't do a very good job of understanding the difference between a user and a customer. Because what I mean by that is the users would be the people who would be looking for the restaurants and the dishes. And I think we were trying to build some sort of business model around the restaurants and charge the restaurants for it. And what was funny there is that the user and the customer, in some cases, they are one and the same, but in our case, user and the customer were different. What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think we were not very clear on who will be our user, who will be our customers. And we were set on that, the restaurant will be our customers and the user will be just general public. But that doesn't have to be the case. I think our mind was too hang up on the that business model. We could be open to a ton out of this business model that would completely change our customers or users. So yeah, just my 2 cents over there.
Yeah, definitely agree on it. Making sure that you build whatever you build, you're actually adding value to the customer as well, not the user, or else the customer's not going to pay for your product or service. Or else otherwise you will have to change your approach and consider someone else as a customer instead.
Yeah. Just to quickly jump in, Ching.
Yeah.
But depending on the business model, if you are running an ad business model, then user could be the user and advertiser could be your customers. But then it doesn't change the fact that you got to attract as many users as possible to build a minimum viable product and do a freemium, and later on, once you have enough trust and enough user growth, then yes, you can attract to a lot of advertising if that's the case. Then I think our mind was to hang up with getting restaurants to be our customers, but then clearly they are not very interested.
Yeah. I want to circle back on that in a second, because I think that speaks to kind of the difference between having a clear mission and versus pursuing opportunities. So we can talk about that in a second. But one other thing I want to touch on is your third lesson there. You talked about worrying about being too perfect. How many developers, do you remember how many developers we were working with at the maximum?
I think 6, 8.
6 or 8, right? And that was really interesting for me, because I think we definitely overkilled it with getting so many developers involved, kind of too many chefs in the kitchen. And the funny analogy that I've heard since leaving is, you can't make a baby in 1 month with 9 women. So having more developers doesn't mean you build something better more quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I agree with that. I think we should just win with 1 or 2, max 3.
And kind of going back to that, so you were talking about understanding whether we want to go after the user and making money off advertising versus going after the restaurants. One common kind of struggle that I see with a lot of early entrepreneurs, and I'd love to get your take on it, is a lot of people say that it's important to understand how to look for opportunities when you become an entrepreneur. You have to look for the right timing. You have to look for the right opportunities to go after something. And this is my personal take. I've personally found that, especially in the last few years, because I've worked with a lot of social entrepreneurs, they tend to start businesses because they have some sort of higher personal mission, like they want to, improve education or reduce plastic pollution, those kind of things. And I find the entrepreneurs who are mission focused tend to go further than the entrepreneurs who are purely after opportunities. What's your take on that?
Well, it really depends what kind of industry you are in, right? Some industry timing is everything. So if you miss the timing,
Hmm.
then you miss the whole mark. Example is the e-commerce market in China it's very very strong compared to what's happening in North America. And then I think now in the past we have seen many Chinese company copy the business model of the company from US particularly.
Hmm.
But now we're also seeing that it's becoming the other way around. So I think timing is very important. EV, for example, again, uh, it wasn't a new concept. It was probably a few decades ago. We already people are thinking about EV, but timing was not ready. People were not ready for it. Technology was not ready.
Hmm.
So I think timing is very important. Now, mission driven. Yeah, I really admire those social entrepreneurs. They drive the values, and then their business are based on their mission. So
Hmm.
yeah. So again, there's no right or wrong, but yeah, interesting to see how they can execute based on the mission, on the values, on the timing.
Yeah. My take on timing is I find that timing is a misconception if you look at it with the wrong lens. So what I mean by that is most people, if you are trying to time the market, you are almost always bound to fail because there's no way for anyone to know what the future is going to do. So what I find is oftentimes the reason why I say mission is important is because the founders who really care about something, they will find a way to make it work, and they are not attached specifically to a certain manifestation of their product. So what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, I'm going to take this as a hypothetical example. Let's say if Elon Musk said, okay, his greater mission is he wants to kind of improve the betterment of the planet by accelerating the adoption of green energy. If you notice his businesses, they've all been centered around that theme, like Solar City and then now Tesla. It's all about energy and greener energy. And he's not tied down to one specific idea. And he keeps coming up with different ideas, and he continues to come up with new ideas as well. So it's not just like, I am Tesla and all in, and that's it, right? So that's what I mean by the mission being important. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's not important to have an eye on opportunity. Opportunities are definitely still important, but having the mission that really grounds you, because I find at the end of the day, businesses don't fail, founders get a job. So at the if you are doing something that you really enjoy, that you really care about, even if as long as you don't give up, your business will keep running. It might evolve, it might change, and it might look very different the next day. But if you're still in it, you're still in it. But if you give up, if you decide, okay, I'm done with this, then there's nothing else that you can do then.
Yeah, interesting. Just drop another comment there. I agree with you, Chin. I think that's very well said. Uh, for people who out there are chasing their opportunities, oftentimes they are based on short-term missions or short-term goals, not really long-term. Example is when Bitcoin was really hot out there. Lots of entrepreneurs are rushing in to build a business around Bitcoin mining.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where are they now? So there's a ton of Bitcoin mining company went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So because they were chasing the opportunities, right? They are not really based on their mission, based on long-term goals. And going back to Elon, yes, his long-term goal is to make Earth multiplanetary, and then part of it is the energy has to be renewable, sustainable. Rocket has to be recyclable, reusable. So yeah, so I think that's very important to have a long-term vision, and then you're right, you gotta love what you do. But the challenge is for young entrepreneurs out there, it's not easy to find what you love right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you need to keep searching and keep looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I don't think there's a magic answer to like finding what your mission is. But having that mission to ground you definitely helps with in business, we call it the pivot, right? Because you don't want to end up throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks. Because I find a lot of people have, especially early entrepreneurs, we have this thing called shiny object syndrome. every time there's a new technology or there's a new hype, like, oh, look, Bitcoin is the new thing, or look, AR VR is the new hype, and now it's AI. You don't want to make your business be something that is AI one day and self-driving cars the next day. Like, there has to be some continuity, and it has to be somewhat related to some focal point, which is ideally your mission and ideally what you've learned about your business. So you're not just trying random stuff. You're trying different experiments based on what you know will work and what will help you get closer towards that end goal that you have.
Yeah.
I love to hear your thoughts on luck. A lot of people don't look at how luck plays a role in entrepreneurship. How do you think, we can either create our own luck or put ourselves in more favorable conditions?
Well, you can win in long term by luck. It's just like you can't plan to win a lottery in order to have a retirement plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't work. It may work for one time, you get lucky, but you cannot get lucky all the time. So I think even opportunity presents, you gotta be ready for the opportunity. So I think it's luck is really about getting ready, be prepared, and when that preparation meets with an right opportunity, then that's what we call luck. If you are not prepared, even you get lucky, you get an opportunity, you may not grab that opportunity or even deliver the opportunity, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
Very, very eloquently said. I want to repeat that again. When preparation meets opportunity, that is when luck happens. Definitely agree with that, because I think, you have to be able to be ready to seize the moment when it does come across. And put yourself in favorable conditions. That part of the preparation is educating yourself, building that network, making sure you know the right people. So don't, especially if you come from more impoverished situations, if you're, someone who has gone from, if you're a person that's starting from the rags and you don't come born with a silver spoon, I think a lot of those entrepreneurs, they think like, I can't do business because I don't have wealthy friends and family. Like, you can still create situations that will help you get closer to your end goal. So don't be afraid to start to prepare yourself early as well.
Yeah, and plus nowadays in our technology, education is basically free. You can literally reach out to anyone. And then you can see that even you can reach out to Elon or to any entrepreneur outlet by a tweet. If you have a very interesting idea, if you are really prepared, and you deliver a very good point or a very good value or even a recommendation, people will pick up. You can reach out to anyone in the world right now within a few seconds, right?
On that note of kind of finding and surrounding yourself with the right people and advice, one thing I also saw with us in our early days when we were starting our business was that we were being frugal in the wrong ways. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's important to save money and be cheap, but there are some times when you have to spend money in certain places as well to open up certain doors and connections. What was your take on that? What did we waste money on? What should we have spent more money on?
Yeah, I think we both have a very good idea, and then that's why we attracted a number of people to join the company. But I think one thing we missed, first of all, we didn't look into the diversity of the company. So, I will highly encourage to look at the key management team has to be very diverse. I mean, what I mean by that is not really ethnic background. It's about diversity in your mind, diversity in your skills and in your knowledge. I think it's very important. So everyone has a different role to play. They can bring different values into the company and drive the company towards the same direction. So I think that's very important. Want to be mindful about the diversity of your team. And second is I missed the second point. What was the question earlier?
What should we have spent more money on or less money on?
Oh, more money definitely on customer validation. Yeah, and then I think we probably hired too many developers. And we wasted money on graphic design. I think that was a lot of money waste. Again, it could be a very ugly fucking app. I don't care as long as it works. right? And then we go out and test with the clients. I think those are the most important thing we need to spend money on. Not really about making it beautiful or making the website look good. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was money wasted.
No word. That's definitely good. Like even Craigslist is not as popular nowadays, but Craigslist looked like crap for the longest time, and it still looks like crap. And they've been running quite profitably for quite a while as well. So that's a testament to how you don't have to look great. As long as you can create value and people can use you, then design is overrated. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, other things that I want to note there as well is we spent a lot on like early things, like yes, the design, like the logo. We even got business cards printed. And I think a lot of that is vanity. It's just us saying like, oh, hey, we think we're running a business. We should have business cards. Like, don't need to have business cards. I've seen people start businesses where they don't even have a website for like the longest time. Like our good friend Herbert, he runs a construction company and he didn't have a website for the first 5 years of his business. And he was quite profitable. And he only just got a website now just because his business has grown so big that people need to start to look at something for credibility. So yeah, if you don't need it, don't spend on it. But I think we should have spent more on, I think we should have actually joined some programs. We should have joined an incubator program. We should have gone out, tried to look for some actual mentors, some people in the industry. So I like your approach on, diversity, not for the ethnic or background kind of thing, but it's more about the mental diversity there. So I really like that piece. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chin, very good point on there. I think we should have gone out to join the incubator program or even any accelerator program. I think later last year, I joined the spring investment cohort. That was very interesting. I think we should have joined something like that in the accelerator program. You can learn so much from the the mentors or the any serial entrepreneurs as well. You can have exposure. What if you win a competition, right? That's a huge publicity for your company and also great validation for your company and your team. And I think we should have done something like that. I would encourage all the early entrepreneurs out there, if you really believe in your company and your team, then go join some accelerator incubator. It's not really about winning it. It's about making a connection and validating your business model and getting some advice. And I think those are a great opportunity we missed in the early days when we were uninsured.
Yeah, agree with that. I slightly disagree with the competition piece, but I think if you have the right mindset, then it's fine. If you're not doing it for the sake of winning, but if you're doing it because you want to actually build peer relationships or actually find a mentor, an advisor, then by all means go for it. The only reason why I say don't join a competition for the sake of competition is because I not only like startup competitions, but you see a lot of pitch events, investor pitch competitions. Personally, I think if you're doing it to win the money, it's not worth the time. Like the amount of time you put
the money is very minimal.
Yeah.
So it's not really worth the time at all.
Definitely agree.
But it's worth the publicity and the validation and getting advice to tweak your company and polish it. I think one of the yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I actually don't even think it's worth the publicity because I think you're getting publicity from the wrong people or the validation from the wrong people. Like you're seeking validation from investors instead of validation from your customers. But
I would disagree with that. One of the company that jump out is Momentum Energy. They actually was one of the winner of the competition, and now they are getting a ton of traction. You can look them up. They have made some very very significant partnership. Like one of them is Benz Mercedes. So through the publicity, so they were the winner of that competition. I think it does really add into now it's all social media, right? All of a sudden people know, oh, who's this Momentum Energy, and then so actually the partnership actually approached them, hey, we are interested, we'd like to learn more, and I'd like to partner with you guys. So I think it does add value.
Yeah, I'd say possibly if the competition or the program is renowned and has good media relationships. Like definitely if you join, let's say a Y Combinator, and if you win one of the, if you place best in their demo days, then that gives you a lot of positive publicity. But if it's like a small no name incubator accelerator and it's and they don't have good media, then probably won't work as well. But yeah, good point. I want to talk about two other things that a lot of early entrepreneurs make. Some of them were not necessarily our mistakes, but one thing a lot of people talk about is focusing too much on the equity discussion, like, who's a co-founder, how much percentage should I get, that kind of stuff. What do you learn about that?
The biggest thing I learned about that is 100% of $1 is worse than 1% of $1 million. As simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but going into that, I think it's more important. You wanna, it doesn't matter if you own 100% or 50%. I think it's really important that you want to know that how long you want to grow the company, and then how much you need to, make this company into reality, and then how many talents you need to bring in, and then how to entice them. It's very important that nowadays I think lots of companies are facing retention problem, facing hiring and turnover rate is very high, hard to find people. I think they have to look into the company internally. How can they attract talent and retain employees? And that's very important. And then one of the way to do is giving out equity, but it really depends on your company size, especially for early entrepreneurs. It's very important that you keep enough to continue to attract talented people, hire smarter people than yourself to work for your company, right?
Mm-hmm. Related to that is the idea of incorporating the company. When do you think is the right time to incorporate?
That's a good question. I think there's no right time to incorporate. You can incorporate any time, but I think it's more important to work on the idea and execute it into a MVP before even incorporate. You can incorporate now if you want to, but I think it doesn't really matter. It's something you shouldn't be spending a lot of time on.
Yeah. The reason why I bring that up, because I think incorporation is very closely related to equity allocation, because you have to allocate your equity when you incorporate. What I've learned is, number one is the sooner you incorporate, I mean, there are pros and cons. So I think you're right when it says, when you say you can incorporate anytime. The sooner you incorporate, the sooner you incur costs. So number one is there's a cost to incorporating, obviously the legal costs, the registration costs, that kind of stuff. But then once you incorporate as well, your fiscal year begins. So every year, then you have to file your corporate taxes, and that usually you have to spend for a bookkeeper on if you've started to make some revenue. So that's one thing. You put yourself on a ticking time bomb. So there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, some people need that motivation to get things started. And then there's a benefit to incorporating sooner rather than later as well, is that there are a lot of grant programs and even some, let's say, financing programs that require that you have been incorporated for a certain period of time. Like they'll only fund you if you have been incorporated for at least a year or something like that. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're going after loans or grants, you might want to incorporate sooner rather than later. But one thing I've also seen is I think people using the incorporation and the equity as a model to control trust. So what I mean by that is, if they go into building a company with people who they think are quote unquote co-founders, but they don't really trust these co-founders, and they're incorporating for the sake of protecting themselves and making sure that they issue the right amount of equity and worry about all these things like IP assignments to the company, then I find that those companies usually don't go anywhere. And the reason why is because if you don't trust the people that you're working with to begin with, no amount of equity will fix the problem. So at the end of the day, you have to trust the people that you're working with. And I might even say, like, if you're not hungry for loans or grants, put off incorporation until you know that your idea has some legs, like until you have people who are willing to use your product or service. Otherwise, like, you don't necessarily need to have an incorporation in order to actually launch your company out there and get users on board as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, well, to me, incorporation, some paperwork, but the paper itself is worthless because your company is nothing. So you have nothing to lose. I think it's more important to find the right people, to find the right co-founder that's going to work with you well in long term. And as time goes, that may change. So if you look at earlier days of Tesla, actually, Elon was not the first person to start Tesla because it was started by two other guys, but they couldn't do it. and then Elon was the one actually turn around and make magical change. So yeah, to me, yeah, it's a paper was nothing.
On that note, what does a co-founder mean to you?
Well, the co-founder means someone who you can trust 100%, someone who can work with you, who can supplement your skills, not complement. So I think it's very important to find the right co-founder. It takes time. And if you don't find the right people, I will just hold off. You can be just one person company, it's fine. And then until you find someone right, and you can add that person on. It doesn't cost a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think trust is the key part there, and trust to want to actually have that person involved in the business decision-making process. Because the reason why I want to bring up the discussion of co-founders is a lot of people struggle to find co-founders. And I think the common mistake a lot of people make is that they go out there looking for co-founders. And the reason why I say that's a mistake is it's kind of like if you go out on dates looking for a wife, right? The word co-founder has a lot of expectation and baggage attached to it. People think that, oh, if I join you as a co-founder, I have to leave my full-time job, or I have to be involved in all the decision-making process for the company. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe if you just need a developer to build your app, then you don't need a co-founder. You just need a developer. You can definitely bring on board an early developer. And if you don't have capital to pay them, if you don't have cash to pay them, you can still give them equity and not call them a co-founder. Because once you give people that title, it's very hard to take it away from them.
Yeah, title means nothing low. But you're right, Ching. I think early entrepreneurs really need to think what kind of people, what's their expectation for co-founder. It's completely different from an employee. So they need to distinguish the difference, right?
Yeah, I agree that title means nothing, but I think the co-founder itself is the expectation around it. So it's more like people feel that because I'm a co-founder, I'm entitled to X, Y, and Z, or I have to have like 50% of the company, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, lots of interesting insights. I think maybe I'll wrap it up by summarizing some of the things, and then we can kind of add on any more if you have more to add. So I just want to summarize some of the key lessons. So number one is you talked a bit about sharing your idea, not being worried about people stealing it. Number two, you talked a bit about not worrying about, you talked about customer validation, going out there, speaking to customers, getting people to use it, getting feedback as quickly as possible. And related to that is not worrying about being perfect. We also talked a bit about the mission and how opportunity and luck plays into that, but having some sort of long-term vision and understanding where you want to go with the business. And then we talked a bit about co-founders and equity, understanding that it's important to find people that you trust, being patient and being able to work with other people as early team members, if not co-founders, just to get things up and running. And then, of course, once you find the right person, then you can make them your co-founder. That can happen in the future as well. So that's something to touch on. And then we talked about not being conservative in the wrong ways. So making sure you go out there, find the right mentors, join the right programs, and kind of create, like you say, preparedness, right? Create the right situation for yourself so that luck can actually play favorably for you. So getting the right mentors, learning the right things, those kind of things. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you summarized it really well, Ching. Maybe a question back to you. If you and I were to do Onion Chef again, what would you do differently? What would be the number one thing?
Personally, I probably wouldn't do it again. Not because I don't want to work with you, but because, because I feel that, to be honest, when I went into it, I went into it because of an opportunity, and I was like, hey, apps are cool. No one's doing it. I think food is something that I'm passionate about, but I think there's a difference between your passion and what you think is your mission. Personally, like, I'm passionate about a lot of things, right? I love food. I love going out my boat, but there's something that I care about a lot more behind that. Like maybe in your case, that might be family. For my case, it might be like, I care a lot about education. So how can I help people learn? How can I help people grow? And I want my business to be built around that. So I feel that Onion Chef isn't around that mission. Therefore, I probably wouldn't do it again. So that would be the biggest one. But let's say hypothetically, if that was my mission to help get good food into people's bellies, then what I would have done differently is probably really just understanding the difference between that user versus customer and going out and understanding what restaurants are looking for. If we were to try to charge restaurants. If not, if we were to try to charge, let's say, the users or do ad revenue, then it's more about finding the right team members and aligning them on that expectation. Because I think we had a rough understanding that it would be like a 2 to 5 year kind of thing before we made money, but we didn't have the patience for that. So if we were able to weather it out, maybe we might have made something work. But if people don't align on that expectation, then it won't work.
Exactly. Cool. Thanks. Thanks very much for this opportunity to share this this startup experience with you again. And then I was very happy that you didn't kick me out as a friend afterwards. And I know sometimes when you break out in the business, you break out friendship. So I'm very grateful to your date. We're still good friends for over 10 years.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time and thank you for sharing as well. And yes, thank you for being a good friend as well.